Hi, everyone. Welcome to Fearless with Mary. I am your host, Mary Tibbetts, and I am so excited you are here with me today. In today's episode, I am sitting down with Heather Diane, adult ADHD advocate. So grab a cup of coffee, get comfortable, and let's dive in. Welcome to the show.
Hi.
How's it going?
It's good. I'm excited.
Good. Okay, we're going to dive in right off the bat. That way everybody knows what's happening. So, can you walk us through your journey and how did you first get diagnosed with ADHD as an adult?
Okay, well, it's a bit of a story, obviously. But the simplest or the Coles Notes version would be I had misdiagnoses in my 30s of depression and anxiety. Without, the full assessments, more than just with your family doctor. And then in my 40s, I hit kind of a rock bottom. I was a principal at the time, and I just literally couldn't keep up with my life, I guess is what you could say. It was just got to an overwhelming part. Um, my husband had had a heart attack 6 months before that, which also was very triggering. And at that time, when I went on to the medical leave, I actually thought I was going crazy. I was having I'd be at work and then all of a sudden I would have spiraling thoughts and I would start having panic attacks. And I would be leaving the building. And I finally just had to get help or whatever. And they assessed me at that time. And ADHD was kind of brought up, but a bunch of people actually said, I don't think that's you. You've got a lot of degrees. You've got a lot of this. I think we would have caught it a lot earlier if that's what it was. And so that kind of got pushed aside. And at that time, I wasn't open to that diagnosis. In fact, I had a lot of shame at the fact that they even thought that might be what's wrong with me. And that comes also from my background in education, obviously. And so I got diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder and depression, seasonal depression, and a few other things. And all I can say to that is that it helped, but it never felt, Mary, quite right. It just never felt quite right. Did it help? Yes. But it wasn't right, I guess you could say. And then I just kind of went on with that. And honestly, I like to call it, I was living like half a life. So I was getting up, I was going to work. I'd gone back to work, not as a principal. I stepped down as a principal because I just could not keep up with the thoughts. And obviously, in a principal role, you're very observed. And so I felt very exposed and I felt all my vulnerabilities were coming up and all my faults. So I went back to work, but I did not talk to anybody. And if you know me, that's not me. I only worked with kids and I literally was in the building and out of the building. I was very unhappy. And I just kind of came to a point where I was like, that's it. This is it, I guess. And you just do your best with life, right? Then I, started to, I don't know, meet people who, like you, they were just little people would pop into my life and show me a side of life that I truly envied. So I guess I'll start with like you. And some people might think this is so simple, but for somebody like me who lived her entire life hiding what I always believed were immense character flaws, truly actually thought I was probably a bad person at the core. And I just absolutely could not talk or admit to anything that might be a fault or something that was just too big for me at that time. And so when I met you, like to give you your story, we were in a bathroom, we were camping with the kids, and I barely knew you because the kids had
I think
connected
we
us,
met
right? Remember I told you
yeah,
right before you arrived, my husband and I'd been like, we don't even know these people. Like we're camping with them for
yeah,
2 days. What if they end up being duds? Like we were all of a sudden like,
yeah.
oh my God.
We
Now
had
I
so
know that
many
was
memories.
probably an ADHD impulse moment too when I invited you without thinking through. But anyway. But anyway,
To be fair, it was
yeah,
an ADHD when I was like, absolutely, we're totally going to do
yeah,
this.
we had the best time, remember? But we were in the bathroom, and do you mind if I share your story, like what you shared with me?
No,
Okay,
go
because
ahead.
I really believe in not telling other people's stories and letting
No,
everybody share
no,
their
no.
own. But we were in there, and you did your little OCD thing, which you can share with the people what you do. And I just kind of looked at you and went, "Oh, what are you doing?" And you went, "Oh, I have the OCD. My therapist says this, and you gave me all these like details. And I just remember going, people like talk about these things that are wrong with them like that, like just like that in a bathroom with like a near stranger. Like, wow, she's a confident person. Like, wow, to have the confidence that she could care less what I think about that statement, where if I made a statement like that about myself, I would have spiraled on that for weeks. Does that person think I'm crazy? Did I overshare? Did I like, I would have, I couldn't connect to the level of confidence I saw from you and about something vulnerable. Like I just didn't know. So that was maybe like the first or second time. And then I can actually, if we had all the time in the world, I could tell you over the next few years how you start getting more signs and more signs. And you start to almost feel like you're being bombarded by signs. And the signs that I was getting were all these amazing people telling me about therapy, about trauma, about like loving themselves in a real way. I'm not talking about like, oh, look at me, love me. I'm talking about loving themselves in a way that I just could not connect to. And I envied it and I wanted it. And
Well, if it makes you feel any better, I'm just going to say I have always been the person you you just get it straight from me.
yes, you do.
And like I'll just tell you. If I disagree, I'll just tell you. And growing up, I was told it was a fault.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually it's just how I
Yeah.
am. People would say, "Oh, you don't have a filter." And I was like, "Nope." Like it used to really bother me, and now I'm like, "No,
I
I
don't.
don't actually have a filter." And if you don't like that I don't have a filter, there's the
Well,
door
and it's
because
not
I'm
and
so good.
and exactly how you just said it too. And I think people, when you say things like that, like there's the door, or this is my boundary, or whatever, people right away think you're being like negative. And it's actually no, it's the exact opposite. I'm actually saying to you, like, if what I'm putting out here right now is not for you, go on. And I do that
Yeah.
with all the love in the world. Go on and
Yes,
find
I
your
do it out of
people.
love. I don't, yeah, I do it out of love.
Yeah.
I don't do it out of
No, no, and I could see it in the way
malice
you
on
said it,
any level.
like the way you just said it.
Yeah.
Well, there is the door. We're not saying like there's the door. We're saying
No.
there is the door. Go find the
Yeah.
people that are going to make you feel good about yourself. Go.
Go find your people
Yeah.
because I'm obviously not your
No,
people.
I am too loud.
Which is,
I am too sensitive. I am too like I'm learning to say these things and they're all true.
but
But
that's why everybody loves you. That's why the people that love you, though.
that's just
Does
it.
that
And
make sense?
that's what I've come to realize. And the people who love me are the most amazing people. Sometimes cannot believe that these people think I'm like special. Like it's like I don't know. And it changes you. It changes you when you meet people who have started the journey. And especially if you're someone who needs it. Like I was struggling. Like I said, I wasn't happy. And I was just trying to do my best. Um, but it's a hard way to live when you get up every day and like this is it. Like this is it.
Yeah.
It doesn't get better. You just do your
Yeah,
thing.
it's a really hard mindset to be. We've all been there.
Mhm.
Do not think that you're the only person that's been there. Even now, some days I wake up and I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
this is it. But in previous interview that I had actually with, she's amazing with Laura, she even said, she's like, you can have it. You can have it for that moment or you can have it for that day, but you can't have that for a week
Yes.
or even 2 weeks or a month. If you need to have it for that day, you can, but then you need to move
Yeah.
on from it.
You have to.
Yeah.
And if you can't, that's a sign that you need something in your life, whether it's
Yeah.
therapy or a diagnosis or whatever. Like, and what like I was telling you when we were just, doing the pre for the show, and I said to you too, like people accept mediocre lives because we're told that that's just what it is. And the fact of the matter is every single one of us has a story and every single one of us is special in some way. And when you
Yeah.
bring your authentic self to the table, and I don't, again, I'm talking true authenticity, like I can be a bad person. I can be a bad friend. And if, I'm even doing something I call ADHD amends, where I now realize that some of it was rejection sensitivity dysphoria, some of it was trauma, some of it was emotional immaturity. I just didn't have the emotional maturity to deal what was ever happening in that relationship or friendship at that time. And I can't believe I'm even saying this on a podcast because there had been a time I would never have admitted to this, but I was not a great friend. And there's a few people in my past that I look back on and I actually feel a little bit of guilt still for it. And I have decided that I'm going to reach out to these people in just a simple way and not on social media. They are going to get, something handwritten from me that is going to be very short because I don't want it to be about me and I don't want it to be, I just want to let them know that I've been on a journey and that I've learned some things about myself and that I'm in a reflective place now and that they're on my mind is something I still really regret because I'm sure what I did caused them pain, confusion, and that they never deserved it. That's it.
That's
And
beautiful.
like I say too, my therapist when I was telling her I wanted to do this and she's like, "Wow, that's brave." And I was like, no, I think what I'm starting to realize is we all have a story. We all have people in our stories, and we all have people showing up in our stories the way they show up. And those are their choices. So if you have unsupportive parents or unsupportive friends or that kind of stuff, that's how they're choosing to show up in your story. But they have the power to change how they show up. They have the power.
Well, and you have the power to change who shows up for you,
Yes. Ooh, I like that even. Yes.
right? Like I have had, I'm not just not digressing,
Yeah.
but you and I talked about this. So I have had friends not show up whatsoever for me
Hmm.
in the last year. And I was so hurt and I was so distraught about all of it. But instead of looking at it that way,
Yeah.
I'm actually looking at the people who have shown up for
Yes.
me. So I am so grateful for my girlfriend Julia, my girlfriend Corinne. Like, I'm so beyond grateful because it's the people that you wouldn't think would show up for you are actually the ones that are going to escape rooms with you because you can't eat at all of their, you can literally eat sushi. So we're sick of sushi. So we're doing escape
Yeah.
rooms or like dropping off a cute little pickle that's it's like one of those
Yes.
squeeze pickles, right? Like it's just those are the people that are showing up. Those are the type of people that show up. So then that makes you and I want to show up for these
Yeah.
people, right?
Yes. And
Yeah.
I believe, like, for myself, because I have realized that I'm not a horrible person in any way, shape, or form. Have I done some things I regret? Absolutely. Are there things that I've looked back on and go, wow, that girl must have been in a lot of pain to do that, right? Or hurt. I always like to remind myself, because I tell my students this all the time, hurt people hurt people. So like when they come and they say, tell me, I'm being bullied or this person keeps picking on me. And I remind them, I said, you got to remember people who are truly happy and love themselves have no desire to change other people, hurt other people, because that's what I've learned. That the more I love myself and understand myself and accept myself, the more grace and compassion I have for everyone around me.
Yeah.
Because when you have it for yourself, it's actually one of the hardest things you can do for yourself, but it's the greatest gift you can give yourself.
Well, and you need to learn how to do it. I'm still
Yeah, me
learning
too.
how to do it. I was telling you I ordered a meditation pill
Yes.
because that is part of it. There's different aspects of learning to love yourself and different things that you have to do. Just because I enjoy meditating doesn't mean that somebody else does. You might enjoy, I don't know, painting.
Yep.
Like I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, right?
Whatever
But
works. Like you've got to find
whatever
your
works.
regulate, and then we can get into that too, like the whole connection between, diagnoses, healing. you've got to find your things that work, and you've got to find a way to quiet your mind. So
Yeah.
obviously, yes, if you
And
have
it's hard.
ADHD or autism and all that stuff, that's even a bigger challenge because our minds are hard to calm. But again, that's part of it too. You have to learn how to do those things so that the thoughts and the emotional dysregulation isn't what's controlling you anymore.
What was your reaction when you received your diagnosis? Were you relieved? Were you scared? Did you have clarity? Like
Mm.
how did you feel about it?
That's a tricky one to answer. So you have to realize that like I'm on a bit of a journey. Obviously my health journey is one thing, but I also um, have complex PTSD. So that is something that I'm learning is integrated with ADHD. And the only reason I bring that up is because when I finally was told that I do have ADHD, I was actually pretty ashamed of it, and I was not.
Really?
I was relieved on a level of, oh, is there maybe something that I've always thought was unique to me? Is it actually not unique? Is there like a bunch of us walking around feeling like this? And there was that part of me that was like, what? Like, just what? But then there was another part of me that was like embarrassed and ashamed. And I think that comes with anything when you're dealing with the word disability. Um, and I guess embarrassment, like being someone who never really spoke her truth at all. That's a pretty deep one to kind of root on at 49. That's a pretty big thing to find out. And then as an educator, and it's hard to say this and it is improving, but education is a tough place to have a neurodivergence. So we don't have a lot of knowledge in education. You don't get trained about it much in like teacher training and stuff like that. But so that was also like, I would never have admitted at that time that I'd had ADHD. And had I known and admitted it, that would have been a very strong person. And I definitely wasn't that in my 20s. So that part came up too. Like I was kind of like, bringing the educator view on that negative view that we kind of have. And it's funny. I always say like it's almost like saying coming out, and I wish I could come up with a different thing, but in some ways it's the same journey. And I had a friend of mine actually say that to you. And anything that you're coming out, where you're sharing a deep part of yourself, it's kind of all a similar journey there, right? Where you're saying this is me, whether it's your sexual orientation or your disability or whatever. So a lot of people at work have started to come to me, like other educators with ADHD, but they're still not willing to openly admit it. Yeah.
Really?
Not everybody.
Because you do
Some of them are,
counseling,
but I
but
have
you're a
openly.
school counselor,
Sorry?
right? You're a school
Yes, I'm an
counselor.
elementary school counselor. I've
Yeah.
done I've done all
So
the levels, but currently I'm an elementary.
so it would make sense that they would come to you, but it's so funny that you're saying that they come to you, but they don't want to admit it.
They come to
I
me
think it's
because
just,
I am open now. Like I have
yeah,
come, and just so you know, Mary, like when I started to tell people at work that I was diagnosed with ADHD and autism, um, like, well, first I should start with the first person that I told. And because of her, I truly believe is one of the reasons I'm here today telling this story. Um, she was a principal when I was a principal, and then I got transferred to her school. So we did know each other as fellow principals. And we'd always clicked, like always this principal, not like close, but those people you just kind of hi and you just click with them. And
yeah.
I always liked her, always respected her. Anyway, I got transferred to her school as the counselor. And, we kind of started out and everything was normal. And I'm doing my quiet thing. You have to realize, like, when I say quiet, I mean quiet. I got my kids, I did the counseling, I dealt with the parents, and I went home. I barely spoke. I didn't go in staff rooms. I barely went to staff meetings, a lot of sick days. Like, when I couldn't face things, I just stayed home. If I woke up overwhelmed, I just stayed home. So that also doesn't do much for your self esteem, right? Because
No.
you're at home going, you piece of crap, like get up and go to work. Like you're lazy. And it just, goes. So one day she made a comment to me. It was a compliment of some kind. And then she just kind of said, how are you? She goes, you don't she goes like, I love having you on staff. I was so excited to get you on staff. She's like, but you don't seem as joyful of a person like you used to be. And she's just like, just know that if you ever want to talk to me about your journey or like what happened when you went on medical leave, because nobody knew. I went on medical leave and I came back and I was a counselor. Nobody knew why or what happened. And I don't know what happened that day, Mary, but I just decided to tell her. And I just started telling her it all. I started telling her about my diagnosis. I started telling her about my breakdown. I started telling her about like just all these vulnerable things. And this is not even a friend. Like, this is a boss. Like, there's so many things wrong with this situation right now. Even my ADHD coach was like, oh my God, Heather, are you disclosed to HR? Like,
Yeah.
so first of all, though, I did trust her not to tell HR. So that's also, being a trusted person is a huge gift, to have a trusted person. And I did trust her with that. And, she looked at me and was like, I can see that, whatever else. But then she validated me in a way that I couldn't ignore. And she just said, Heather, I'll take you more than half of the people on my staff. Your energy with the kids, your love for children and education, your passion for learning disabilities and the kids that are struggling, emotionally. And, well, why do you think I'm so good with them? Because I was them.
Yeah.
And she just kind of looked at me and said, I'll take you anytime. And if you need some help when you're dysregulated, let me know. And I was just kind of like, what? She's like, yeah, come to work if you're feeling dysregulated, but just tell me you're dysregulated. She goes, and we'll work it out. And I was just like, she goes, if you need to go to Starbucks, go to Starbucks, but show up, right? Like, show up and know you have a safe person here. And you can come in and say, I'm dysregulated. I'm losing it. I'm paranoid about this, or I think this, and da, da, da. And so having that started to change things for me, and I started to be open about it. And so, sorry, going back, here's my ADHD brain, welcome to it. So I'm giving you that background. So when I found out officially, I was pretty sad, and I had a lot of mixed feelings about it. Once I got, and I think you and I talked about this with your MS cycle too. I believe all of this stuff is cycles, right? We go through acceptance and grief and anger and all those things. And I always remind people that, like, even though you go through the stages of like grief or stages of mourning or whatever, it's a cycle, which means it can continue to go like that all the time. You're never done.
Yeah.
I still have moments where I'm very angry that this is how I have to live and that I have to have these challenges. And there's other days where I'm joyful that I was given these challenges and these things because I'm able to connect with children and parents on a level that some people cannot connect on. Because when you're dealing with these sort of things and you're talking to someone who can look you in the eye and say, I also have this disability.
Yeah.
And they can see that you're thriving, got a career, their kids love me or whatever, and you're changing things for these kids. Well, regardless of how you feel about yourself, you better start taking note, because it's happening, whether you're ready for it or not.
Yeah.
So that was my acceptance of once I got the ADHD acceptance and I decided to try medication. And I'm just going to tell you that story too, because I think I understand something that maybe people don't really know. Have you ever tried ADHD medication?
No.
Okay. So when I finally decided to give it a go, what was recommended to me, and I just want to point that out to people who maybe are on a similar journey, it was recommended to me to try the ADHD medication for even 3 to 4 weeks. And that was from an ADHD coach, not a medical doctor. And the reasoning behind that was so that you can understand what a neurotypical brain works like, so that you can actually understand what your difference is. Because how are we supposed to understand how our brains are different? Because that's how we've lived in them our whole lives. That's all we know. So I decided to try ADHD meds. Well, Mary, let me tell you, first day on those meds, I did not take them again for like 4 days. First of all.
Why?
Everything was so quiet in my brain. First of all, I was not comfortable with it. I was just like, what is this? Like, I don't even know how to explain to you. Not a thought about the laundry, not about this, not about that, not about, like, there wasn't all the thoughts. It was just like, oh, I'm doing this right now and I'm just going to continue to do this. And there was no effort.
You know what, though? Sorry, I'm not
That's
intervening.
okay.
We're going to come back to that. I actually do know exactly what you're talking about because the only reason I'm sharing is so people who don't know a lot about MS and are listening, they can understand. If they have ADHD, they can understand. So right here, this is the best part that best way for me to explain. So right here, my brain. So I had seizures.
Yeah.
I had medical seizures. I had a lot of them. Um, Talked to my new neurologist. He explained to me that I actually did have seizures, and then he was looking at my brain scan. So right in my frontal cortex on the right side, it's like burnt out.
Hmm.
Like it's burnt out. Like it's burnt out.
Yeah.
It doesn't work anymore. So when you say there's nothing in your mind and it's quiet, I understand because for the first little while, I was like, my husband, Matt, would be like, babe, are you okay? And I'm like, yeah, why? And he's like, you just look like there's like nothing there. I'm like, there is nothing there. I don't know. And I'm very much like you. It's so noisy all
The
the
time.
time. Yeah,
So
all the
now
time.
imagine
So,
being a child,
okay, go on.
right? Like you
Yeah,
get into that.
yeah.
But so yeah, like so it got so quiet, Mary, that I now realize there was a lot. This was also a trauma response. Okay. It's because um the medication too, but that's what I was wanted to say. So when we used to over medicate kids, I think everyone needs to understand that. Like if you were a 30, 35-year-old and you were diagnosed as a child with ADHD and you were put on medication and you were over medicated and that's why you refuse to take it now or even look at it for your kids. First of all, you're putting your trauma on your kids and your journey is not your kids' journey. So we need to there. Second, you have to understand that at that time they were overdose. They were over, what's the word? Your dosage.
Prescribing.
Yeah. They were giving too much to the kids. But we also have to remember that's when they were first figuring out about all this, right? So they were still figuring out the medications and the stuff. So what I have come to realize is, when kids first get on medication and they kind of have that zombie look, you got to
Yeah.
give them a couple days because for some of them, it might be too high of a dose. Absolutely. Okay. And we do
Okay.
have to look at that. But I also have learned that doctors today, responsible doctors, we start with a sprinkling, right? And we slowly go up. And so it's changed from starting at a high dose, right? It starts with just a tiny little sprinkling and then goes up from there. But these kids have never had quiet minds before. So the very first day a child's on ADHD meds, it isn't completely out to lunch that you might see a little bit of this, right?
Yeah.
Because they're also, everything changes, even my emotions. I am so much calmer.
So are you still on
Yeah, so I
medication?
use the medication to work. I don't know that
Okay.
I could.
So how about, if you
No,
don't mind me asking, you don't
no,
have
not
to
at all.
tell us, but how much are you
I
on?
am on Vyvanse and I take, and well, this is not, we can get into my medication journey too. Um, I am only able to take a certain amount because it started to affect my eyes, like my vision. So I actually struggle still, like my ADHD is still, how do you put it? So when you first start medication, you will feel that first day you're going to feel a major change and it doesn't stay like that. So like after a couple days when your body's a little more used to the medication, then the way I like to describe the way my brain works on medication is I still have all the thoughts. So like this is how I describe my brain, no medication. Okay, like, ooh, what am I doing today? I got to call Mary. Oh, did I do this? Oh, did I do that? La, 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 la. And it's just constant. On medication, I feel like all the thoughts go up here. They're all still there, but they're not swirling. And so I'm able to pull them as needed. And
Okay.
sometimes one will pop in, or two or three. And then I just have to kind of say, oh, boop, and they'll go back. So it slows everything down to a manageable state.
So it's like chaotic organization.
Yes. It really is.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
hilarious because as I go through my day and my medication runs off, so I say to people like literally as my thoughts start to do this a little bit faster, you can literally see it. You'll come to my office, my desk's a mess. The kids will start coming, Mrs. C, you left this in here. Mrs. C, you left your water bottle. Mrs. C, you left your glasses. Mrs. C, you left your computer. Like the kids are constantly coming to the office with my shit, like constantly. It's like a game. Mrs. C was in the room. Did she leave anything? Because if they find it, they get to return it.
I
Um,
love that.
so the meds have made me able to go back to work, engage in my life in a lot of ways, and they've really helped with the regulation for me, emotional regulation, more than even the focus.
That's really good.
Yeah.
That's actually that's a that's a win statement, I guess, because a lot of people have a lot of not great things to say about lots of medication, not just ADHD medication, but like I can go into it, but we won't
No.
because it's like that's a
And you
whole
have
other
to do what you
podcast.
have to do. I always tell parents at the end of the day,
Yeah.
but I also like to remind parents that if your child was diabetic, you would give them insulin.
And I always explain this to people about, oh, listen, we had this conversation about eating properly. If you're diabetic, there's a diabetic
Yeah.
diet. If you have MS, there's an MS diet. If you have ADHD, it's probably a really good idea to not eat a shit ton of sugar.
And one of the
Like I'm
first
just,
things I suggest to people, and like I'm working on this getting a team, but is you do see a dietitian and you do talk to them about how to
yeah,
produce, because there's a whole ADHD is a dopamine deficiency. And a lot of times people think the dopamine deficiency is only in our brain, but it is not. And this will get into our autoimmune stuff too. So you'll be able to actually
Yeah.
educate me on this. Um, so we have two, as far as I know, and scientists, please jump in if I'm wrong, but as far as I know, the two places we produce dopamine is your brain and your stomach.
Yes.
Okay. So people with ADHD have a dopamine deficiency. I can honestly tell you, and my husband can tell you this is the truth. I truly believe I have a dopamine deficiency in my stomach as well, which is why, for one thing, I'm completely a sugar addict. Okay. My husband will tell you, as my meds wear off and stuff too, I will search this house for chocolate like a junkie. Um,
Yeah.
and it also happens, and this is what's interesting, I can eat a big meal with like everybody around the table, right? I'll eat the meal. I mean, that full feeling, and everyone kind of goes, you know, I'll get that, but it'll be followed immediately, Mary, by I need a piece of effing chocolate right now. And I'm stuffed. Like I am full to the, but my body, and this has been a lifelong thing. And then this also goes into my body disorders and all that, because I've lost over 100 pounds. And there's that whole story too, where I used to feel like a piece of shit all the time about myself because I would eat and then I'd have weight issues and da 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 da. Well, I truly believe,
we've talked about
yeah,
that because I have a form of body,
yeah.
whatever. Anyways,
Yeah.
yeah.
But I believe that I
I'm
have a
like, oh,
dopamine
oh,
deficiency in my stomach, and that is why I crave sugar even after eating a big meal. My body knows it needs dopamine, that you're supposed to get dopamine after that. Like your body's supposed to say, wow, we ate a good meal, poof, pop a dopamine, right? Wow, we cleaned the house, poof, pop a dopamine. ADHDers get none of that
yeah.
ever.
Yeah.
So that's huge too, because that is something that if you don't have enough of, it's like you can go kind of almost crazy searching for it. That's why
Yeah.
ADHDers are prone to addiction. That's why a lot of ADHDers are smokers. Because like I told you about my story, like when I actually discovered cigarettes, um, it was, detrimental to my self-image, because I constantly would say, like, what kind of person would keep smoking and killing herself? And then when I had kids and I'd, quit and start and quit and start, I would talk to myself like that. Like, what kind of mother smokes and takes this chance that she could get cancer or die? Like, this was my stuff, but yet I'd still smoke, because when I smoked, I did feel better. And when I smoked, it did calm my social anxiety. Look around, Mary. Think about when we could smoke and drink in bars. I was,
Listen, I loved smoking, and I
me
did.
too,
It was
but
like my
I was the
favorite
life of
thing.
the party when I could smoke and
Me
drink in a
too.
bar. And I now realize, because I had my stimulant, I took a shot,
Yeah.
I had this, my social anxiety would go poof, and then I would get a little
Yeah.
drunk and I'm the life of the party. And I would have a great old time.
You know what's really funny? Because you said social anxiety there. So if anybody so I don't know if everybody knows. So I actually have ADHD too. So I was diagnosed years ago.
Yeah.
Years ago. So it wasn't a shock to anybody when I said I had ADHD. It was like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Anyways, the social anxiety portion of it though, that's so funny, because if you were to ask anybody who knows me,
Yep.
I to them am the life of the party. I am so outgoing. I am so this. I'm so loud. Everybody knows
So
everything, blah, 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 blah.
confident.
I'm so confident. What people don't realize is I weigh myself 7 times a day to make sure that I don't put on an extra ounce of weight. I'm working on it. Actually, I don't do that
I was just
anymore
saying,
because of my
Mike got rid of my scale. I don't know where
yeah,
it
I
is.
can't do that. I'm not there
Took it
yet. I'm
away.
not there
No,
yet.
he took it away because I would cry.
Yeah. Oh. But I do that. I absolutely hate going and what's the word? Not socializing. I hate not
Networking.
marketing. I hate networking. I hate networking, but I know I have to do it, so I do it. And almost every single time that I leave a networking event, I have to give myself really positive self-talk after that because I'm like, why the hell did you say that? Why did you? Meanwhile, nobody actually even gave a shit what I said about anything. So it's all mindset. It's all of that stuff, all of it. And it's just trauma from everything.
It is.
When you were, it's just, it is, right? Like every single report card, and I always say this, every single, and my family jokes,
Family of
what
origin.
my family of origin always jokes around that, well, Mary's report card said would do really well in class if she didn't talk so much. Mary socializes, Mary this, Mary that. So instead of being shitty to me about me, so maybe ask me a question why. Well, I'm going to tell you why. Because I'm digressing.
That's
I'm so
okay.
sorry. I'm going to tell you why. Because when I was a kid, we had a very strange family. I'm not gonna like it was the 80s, dude. It was very different than
Your
it is
parents were
now.
boomers.
They were boomers. They partied every weekend. There were people at our house partying all the time. They would go out. It was me and my sister. My sister pretty much raised me when I was younger, which looking back wasn't fair to her or to me on any level. Then my parents got divorced. Then.
Trauma, trauma, trauma.
Trauma. But nobody actually stopped and said, Mary, why do you do that? Like, Mary, why do you need to talk? What, like, you're not even talking really about anything. Because in my house, I didn't have a voice. I got shut down immediately because I was too loud. I was too this, too that, too. Right?
And those,
So,
and that, like I was telling you too, like that's something that's really come across to me. That is what we start hearing right away, right? Too much, too messy, too sensitive, too loud, too hyper, talks too fast. Like that word too. It's a lot. And when you really start to unravel what ADHD is and what the more typical symptoms of ADHD present in most of us, because I always compare, like when I'm telling parents about ADHD or introducing parents to ADHD or to the assessment process, I say to them, one of the reasons it's so hard to treat ADHD in schools, especially and in our learning environments, is that there's not a one size fits all approach. We're like a smoothie, right? Like once you are in the ADHD spectrum, now some of us might have more autism stuff. Some of us might have more OCD. Some of us might have oppositional defiance. Some of us have dyslexia. Some of us have a math learning disability. Like it just starts to go. Some of us have massive anxiety. Some of us have a major impulse control. Those are our daredevils or the ones that are in prison because they didn't think things through, right? Like go to the prisons, you're going to see a ton of undiagnosed ADHDers in there. I'm talking about like the low criminals, like the ones that are kind of there for petty stuff.
not the psychopath.
Like the ones that would be there for stupid mistakes, impulsive choices. So ADHD, you got to find where you are in those areas. And then just to complicate everything for the adults, now you got to add trauma because ADHD and trauma will mix. And then as I was telling you, there's an actual thing called ADHD trauma. And so you actually need to treat both. You got to treat your trauma and you got to treat your ADHD trauma, especially if you're in the lost generation like we are. Or I am. I'm not sure if you're in there, but
I'm 45.
yeah, so you're in there. Yeah.
Yeah.
So like my generation, you got to remember, they didn't even think girls could have it.
I know.
So I didn't have a hope in hell of being diagnosed.
No.
But here's what, like, some people will say, well, what's the big deal? Like, look at you. You have friends, you're successful, you have a successful marriage, you have, people will point that out to them. And I'll say, well, okay, well, why don't I start with the fact that when I was in grade 2, so that makes me 7, I already knew that I was stupid. Okay, this is what I thought, because I already knew that I could not keep up with the classmates. Like whatever they were teaching, I remember I could not do it. I could not watch. I could not listen to the teacher, all that stuff. And I remember being at the end of grade 2, I was at an award ceremony. You know how schools have the award ceremonies at the end of the year and you celebrate and all this stuff. And I thought it was so cool that some of these kids like had their name called. Remember, I'm 7. Had their name called and they got to go up, and everybody clapped for them. Maybe it was the actress in me. But everybody clapped for them and they got this certificate and they got this, like, someone took their picture. And at 7, I already knew that I would not be able to get an academic award. I already had put a limitation on myself and my abilities of great magnitude, which I don't think people get, that at 7 years old, I was smart enough, and this is what I've learned through therapy. Okay, so when I say this and if I sound really confident and all that stuff, please know it's like 5 years of therapy to get to this statement. But I already put a limitation on myself and I was smart enough. And this is where the ADHD superpowers come in. And I was smart enough in some kind of way to see where I fit into all of this and to already know some of my limitations, but also to know some of my strengths. And I like to say, also figuring out what I could control, which is also a trauma response. But so at that thing, finally, all of a sudden, there was this interesting award, which we don't do in schools anymore. But it was perfect attendance. And I looked over and I remember asking my teacher, what's perfect attendance? And she said, that means you don't miss one day of school. And those kids got called up, Mary. Well, I can do that. I can have perfect attendance. So in grade 3, that was my goal. I was going to have perfect attendance and I was going to walk down that stage and everyone was going to clap and I was going to get my name called and it was going to be amazing. And that got me through grade 3. Like I remember, again, not being able to learn, like it was so long. I don't think people realize how hard school was. It was so, so hard.
Oh, I do.
So hard. It was so long and you were constantly told you were lazy, you didn't try hard enough. You were like, I was just too much everything. So grade 3, that was my journey. I wasn't missing one day of school. I was getting that award. And I went sick. I remember throwing up in the bathroom and still going back to class. Like I was getting that fucking award. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
No,
you can. Yeah.
And then, unfortunately, there's not a happy ending to this story. And sometimes I actually, I used to say to people, I used to feel like I was very born unlucky because I was born on April the 13th, Friday, April the 13th.
Yeah.
And I've now changed it to unlucky or blessed.
Right.
But, because I've now learned that every hardship I did go through does make you stronger. And so, whether it should have happened or not. But anyway, the ending to that story was my dad got transferred to Red Deer. So we were up in Grand Prairie at this point. And he got transferred to Red Deer and my parents decided to leave early. So I raised a fuss, of course, and my mom tried to advocate for me. She went to the school and kind of like whatever, and she did get the principal to give me that award. Like she did advocate, but guess how he did it? And I'll never forget it. And my therapist was like, I wish I could find him and just like smack him. But so I got called down to his office and he flung it across the desk at me and went, there you go, but it's not perfect attendance.
He did not.
He's like, you're not coming the last 10 days. That's not perfect attendance. And so he just took it all away.
Shitty.
Yeah. And so imagine now let's add Okay, why is this a memory that stands out to me? And why might people think, well, now
It's a
let's get
core
to
memory.
ADHD, rejection
Yeah.
sensitivity dysphoria. I had that day, right? When he threw that at me and he made me feel again unworthy. And I didn't get to clap and go up on stage, and I didn't get everything. And even if he had, been nicer about it, it just still didn't happen. And I still remember those things. And so that's what I try to let people know. Like when these neurodivergent children experience these moments of rejection or super sensitivity or too sensitive moments, people need to realize like they leave a mark on these people's souls.
Yeah.
It's really interesting. I'll just tell you a quick little story because it's
I
kind
love
of
your
sort
stories.
of the same situation. And then we'll move on to the last
Okay.
question and then we'll go from there. Um, so I was in grade one or two, one or two, and I can't remember. And I can remember the classroom, like I can close my eyes and I can remember. And I remember the teacher, and she was an old hag. She was horrible. It was grade two. Anyway, so you know how you would remember back in the days where they would give you the math book
Yes.
for the year? It was the whole year.
Yeah.
And you guys would do it in class, and it was adding and subtracting because it's like grade
Yeah.
two. I loved math because I owned a bookkeeping company,
Yeah.
whatever. Because I love when things zero out, like when everything equals what it's supposed to equal. I'm not even kidding you. It's Christmas morning
Yeah.
for me. Like it's a thing. So I
It's
took this
kind of in
math
your
book home
OCD
and
area too, right?
yeah, 100%. So I take this math book home and I'm so excited, and I go through and I did all of the work.
Right.
Like over the weekend, I finished the whole entire book. So I got back to school on Monday and I was so excited. It was supposed to last the whole year though, right? But I did all of it. And I got back and I showed the teacher, and she made me erase all of it. And I was like, or you could have taken the book, went through, see if it was all right. Because if it was, holy shit, lady, you could have moved me to grade three. Do you get, like, you could have advanced me to a higher math level
Or even just
because
validated the fact that,
that I did
this
it.
little one went home and did all that. And
Yeah.
I always say this too, like, so a child doing that is doing that to please you. Like they're trying to impress you. And so regardless
Yes.
of
Because
whether
she
it was the
was,
right thing or not thing to do, it doesn't matter. Like you need to take that little kid's
yes.
spirit into consideration there. Like a
Yeah.
good
Because
principal
she
in
was
my
such a bitch.
situation would have said, congratulations. And he maybe even would have had the secretary come in and, he would have made it a
Yeah.
ceremony because that's just being kind. But
Yeah. But she was such a bitch. She made me erase all of it. So guess what? For the rest of the year, I was late on
yeah,
every assignment and I didn't give a shit.
because
And you
why
know
would
what's
you?
so why would I? I don't
Yeah.
care. And you know what's really funny? Because you're like, I was smart enough, like you were saying. So my husband, Matt, and I have this conversation a lot. I'm like, it just irritates me because I think I'm a really smart person. Like, I feel like I'm really smart. And he's like, you're so smart. He's like, you are probably one of the smartest people I've ever met. And I'm like, you're just saying that
And
because you're
because
my
you're
husband. He's
biased.
like, no, yeah, you're biased. And he's like, babe, you literally
Yeah. And I believe
like
that too, Mary.
seriously?
I do believe that the neurodivergent people on this earth are some of the most intelligent people on this earth. And it's because of
Yeah.
how our brains are built. But
Yep.
unfortunately, our school systems, our workplaces, and the world is not built for our brains. And so
No.
we are going to struggle until that changes. And it is changing.
Yeah.
It's just changing at a turtle pace. Um,
Yeah, and we get poo-pooed on.
Yes. And some people don't think
We
it's
get
real. And some people think we're just trying to medicate kids. And some people, and they don't realize that this goes so, so much deeper than that. And for some of us like me, this was debilitating, like
Yeah.
debilitating. And the high level of masking that I have been living under, it's not healthy. And it's very complex. And so that's why I've started this journey where I've kind of gone through the therapy. I've gone through the anger phase, right? Like there's no way you can
Yeah.
do this in anger. And I remind people that are
No.
just starting their journey that you're allowed to be angry. And I will, connect you with people that can help you with that anger. And you're allowed. In fact, you need to feel it. and anything else you need to feel, those big, big feelings. And now what's kind of stage 2 for me is now I'm going back again through a lot of it, but now with more of an objective and healed view. And all I'm trying to do, I'm not trying to figure out, I remind, families of origin. It's not about good or bad parenting or anything in the past. It's not living in the past. It's going back and looking at your childhood. To give you an example, I have since started this journey, and this stuff you can't frickin' make up. I decided to start this journey of living in truth. Okay. So the very first thing my therapist kind of got me started, she goes, think about like your conception. Were you an accident? Were you planned? So I'm just going to tell you that part. Okay. So just from when I was planned, I was a second child, but my parents were very young, 18 and at that time, probably 20-ish. I was planned, but my mom had had a C-section with my brother. And so in those days, in the 70s, you didn't have the option for a VBAC, right? You just had another C-section. So long story short, my mom thinks they got my due date wrong. And I was only 5 pounds and I was basically a preemie. Okay. So if you do any research on premature and ADHD exacerbation, there's a huge correlation. Okay. But I also found out that I always thought I was born on Good Friday. Found out I wasn't born on Good Friday. Still don't quite know where that came from. And if you knew my family, you'd understand that it was almost like we used to say I was born on Good Friday when people would say, oh, you were born on Friday the 13th. That's not very lucky. And so we kind of go, oh, it was Friday. It was Good Friday. And so I get started on this thing, and I have this woman that's helping me like fact check stuff. And she reads my first submission and she sends back to me, 1973 was Good Friday was April 20th. So I was like, what? So that's one part. I'm just trying to show you how this journey can be. So I haven't even really been born yet. And there's already things that you could call are like masking. So I was born at the wrong time. I was a preemie.
Yeah.
I was colicky. My mom will tell you I cried incessantly. I was allergic to everything. She could barely feed me because they didn't breastfeed in those days, right? So if you do all the research on all that stuff, that's very acerbating for ADHD, okay, and autism. And some of babies with ADHD and autism, they do believe are crying and colicky and digestive issues because we believe it's all connected, right?
Okay.
So
Yeah.
just there, I found out that I wasn't born on Good Friday, which some of you are probably thinking that's no big deal, but just try to think of something you've always thought of a truth of yours your whole life, and you just find out it's not. And then I also I was told I was born on April 13th, which was my paternal grandfather's birthday. And that was part of the reason my parents chose that date. Found out he was born on April 12th.
No.
Like what? And my parents did not know that. They as far as they knew, his birthday was that. But when I as I'm doing this research, I reached out to the historian of my family, and I want to know the background of our mental health on that side. And I know she'd done all the moving here and all that stuff. So I met with my aunt a couple times to get my family history. And when she sent me the family tree book, it's like my grandpa's birthday's right there, and it's April 12th. And so I was like, what? This is just, and so I stopped for a few weeks. I literally had to stop because it was overwhelming. And I was like, what am I going to find out if I keep going?
Yeah.
I haven't even got to my first birthday yet. But I am going to keep going, and I am going to keep figuring it out because it's my truth. And so it is what it is. And it's not bad. It's not good. It just is what it is. And that's what I'm really realizing healing is.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. That's exactly what healing is. Everybody needs to find their own truth. That I do know
1,000%. And the people who object to it the most are the ones that haven't done it themselves.
And it's, that's a conversation for not on the podcast.
Yeah. But I always tell people that too. If you're getting resistance from people in your life, regardless of who they are, stop and think to yourself for a sec. You're trying to be a better person. You're trying to improve your emotion reactions to things. You're trying to improve your relationships. You're trying to figure out why there's something in you that you feel is broken or not quite right or whatever. and you go to someone with these vulnerable things, if anything but you do what you need to do and can I help is the response, they haven't done the work. And so they're not a reliable person to be going to. And
Yeah.
so you might have to look
And
outside your group.
well, that's where finding your people, we talked about this before, finding your people is very important. I'm not saying get rid of everybody. That's
No.
not what I'm saying on any level. But I also know that I haven't met everybody in my life that I'm gonna love, and that's gonna love me.
And isn't that
Right?
beautiful?
So,
Like,
yes.
I
And so I
love,
just,
like, when you meet a person and you have that connection again and you're just like, what? Like, it's still happening. And now it's even
yes,
happening on a more real level. Like, not just a let's go party
yes,
in a fun level, but like where we're sharing our pain and our lowest points in life. And then on the opposite side of the coin, we're sharing and healing and powering each other. And it's so beautiful.
yeah, yeah. It really is. Like, I don't party. I haven't partied for
I
years.
can't.
That's exhausting. I can't
I
do
need a
that.
week to
Listen,
like recover.
for multiple, well, I'm not actually allowed to drink. So like there's
Yeah,
that.
that's part of it.
But even that, nor do I want to. Like even before all of this shit, I might have had a glass of wine here and there. Like my husband doesn't drink. He hasn't drank for 7 or 8 years. So it's really no fun for
No.
me to have anything. I get really excited when my mother-in-law comes in though, because we will have a glass of
Yes.
wine together. So I'm just like, yay, I get to have a glass of wine.
Yeah,
Right?
and I've always been happy that I wasn't one of those people that used alcohol for dopamine because like I have a lot of people with ADHD are alcoholics or have had to, at
Yeah.
least stop drinking because it's their major dopamine producer. And I was always really happy that I wasn't so that I can still enjoy it from time to time.
I absolutely loved having Heather on the podcast today. Make sure you head over to Facebook and Instagram, give her a follow under Heather Diane. Also, don't forget to subscribe to my page below so you never miss anything that comes out of Fearless with Mary. Have a good one.